Do your kids love breakfast but hate vegetables? Today's recipe is for you. To be honest, my children are pretty good about eating their vegetables, but across the board, all of them dislike zucchini, unless it's in zucchini bread, which is exactly what I'm baking for you today. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Let's get baking. So right out of the gate, I am deviating from the original recipe because I didn't have any olive oil in my pantry. So instead, I melted 1 stick of unsalted butter and then I grated 1 zucchini. And you only need a cup for 1 loaf of zucchini bread, and this yielded a lot more than that. So I was able to make more zucchini bread later in the week, and for that, I did use olive oil, and I'll show you the difference between the 2 loaves at the end. Next, I whisked together the dry ingredients. So that included 1½ cups of all-purpose flour, 1½ teaspoons of cinnamon, a pinch of nutmeg, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and a half a teaspoon of salt. And then I whisk that all together. Next, I added in 2/3 a cup of sugar and the half a cup of melted butter. And spoiler alert, I recommend that you stick with the original recipe and use olive oil or vegetable oil. It just makes a slightly more moist zucchini bread. Next, I added in 1 beaten egg, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1 cup of the shredded zucchini. I want to mention too that the consistency of my batter was thicker than usual. I think it's because I had just opened a brand new bag of flour and I didn't take the time to fluff it up. So when I measured it out, I think I had a little too much flour in there. You always want to take the time, if you don't sift your flour, to at least fluff it up with a fork so that it's light, and when you measure it out, you're not getting too much into your mixture. Lastly, I'm adding a half a cup of chocolate chips, which is optional, but absolutely delicious. Another great mix in here with the chocolate chips or just by itself is dried cranberries. And if you like a little crunch, you could add some chopped pecans or walnuts as well. You have to grease and flour your 9 by 5 inch loaf pan. So to do that, you can spray it with nonstick spray or just grease the inside with butter, and then tap a little bit of all-purpose flour all around the inside so that it coats the bottom and sides of your pan. Then you can use a rubber spatula to spread the dough evenly inside. This zucchini bread bakes at 350 degrees for about 50 minutes. You don't want to overbake it, and you'll know it's done if you stick a toothpick into the middle and it comes out clean. Once this cooled on my baking rack, I ran a knife around the perimeter and was able to easily pop the loaf out of the pan. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to cut into this loaf and you'll see it's just slightly drier looking, although to be honest, it still had a nice moist taste and texture because that zucchini has so much water content in it. It really adds to the moisture of the bread. It's great. But when I baked this later in the week with olive oil, it was definitely better. A little bit softer, and it just had a better flavor to it too. So I recommend that. All of my zucchini haters loved this loaf of bread. They were going in for seconds and thirds. So I really do recommend this as not a healthy recipe, but definitely a way to sneak in a little bit of veggies for your kids. Finally, here's a clip of me slicing into that olive oil loaf of zucchini bread. It tasted fantastic, had a wonderful texture. I hope you give this recipe a try soon. Thank you so much for joining me here in my kitchen today, and I'll see you again soon.